Hi, I'm Claudine Wong from KTVU Channel 2 News. Welcome to a forum of candidates running for 2 seats on the Central Contra Costa Sanitary District Board. The Sanitary District is a progressive public utility which provides wastewater services to over 484,000 residents and more than 3,000 businesses in Central Contra Costa County. Today's forum is sponsored by the Contra Costa Elections Division, Contra Costa Television, the League of Women Voters of Diablo Valley, and the League of Women Voters of West Contra Costa. We are recording these roundtables here in the studio of Contra Costa Television. And the candidates are David R. Williams, Stephen R. Maris, and Michael Robert McGill. We drew lots before the show to determine the speaking order, so we will begin with David R. Williams and just talk about your priorities. What do you see for the sanitary district?
Well, so the sanitary district is responsible for protecting the public health and the environment. We do that through treating wastewater. And if you think about it, wastewater is actually a resource. It shouldn't be wasted. So our primary goal is to treat the water so that it can be discharged without harming the environment at all into Sassoon Bay. That's where it's discharged. But we've been doing that for a long, long time. With the state of California being water deprived, so to speak, climate change, longer droughts, more severe droughts, we're looking at trying to utilize that water that's been highly treated and can even be more highly treated to the point that it can benefit our region. So that's one of our highest priorities. Another priority is, given that our primary goal is wastewater treatment, we want to do that in a very cost-effective manner so that we accomplish our mission of protecting the public health and the environment in a very cost-effective manner, looking after the ratepayers.
All right, Stephen?
Hi. Well, I'm new to this whole thing. I'm a first-time candidate in public office. I chose to run for this office, for sanitary district, because I identified it as a place where the public funds could be used a little bit more efficiently. I see chances for eliminating waste and using the public funds that are being collected in your property taxes more efficiently to treat the water, like David says. I mean, ultimately, we all want a nice environment that's clean, everybody can enjoy. I myself am out in the parks and out in the bay, playing in our resources all the time. And I don't want to see the pollution in the bay, and I know that's the main priority of the sanitary district.
All right, and Mike, your top priorities?
My top priorities for the sanitary district is really the most efficient and effective use of water. We certainly do protect public health and protect the environment. We do need to recycle every drop of water we can. We need to keep it back on land, either for agricultural use or for industrial use. We can exchange it with other agencies that need water, and we can do that within the cost framework and structure we have so that our ratepayers get better bang for their buck.
You know, we were talking before this forum started just about educating the voters on what you do. Steve, I'm going to start with you in terms of when you're talking to people and you're saying, this is what I'm running for and this is what I want to do. What is, you know, you've said an overwhelming response from people as you're trying to explain the job and how you can implement it.
Right. Well, I'm an engineer by trade, but the board position is really oversight of the workers. There's some really great employees at the Central Sanitary District offices. They take a lot of pride in their work, and all they really need is support from the board to do that. And I don't know the details about how the whole plant works. I know basically it's cleaning our water, and your average citizen, you know, the voter doesn't even think about what's happening when they flush the toilet, where it goes. All right, so. You know,
so there's a process to bridging the gap between why their vote matters here.
Exactly. I mean, you know, people don't like to think about this, where it goes, but it's very important for our environment, so it's really.
Mike, how do you respond to that? I mean, when you're talking to folks and you're saying this is what I do and this is how I define myself as a candidate, how do you convince them their vote matters in this race?
Well, I usually lead with public health and protecting the environment. Certainly, we go through multiple levels of treatment at our plant: primary, secondary, tertiary. We have opportunities to do advanced treatment, if that's warranted. We use ultraviolet light for our disinfection. That gets a little bit technical for people. I usually talk in terms of how can we recapture this water after you as a single-family homeowner spend $650 a year, or thereabouts, for your wastewater treatment bill. How can we take that clean water and use it again? And of course, we do other things. We do household hazardous waste recovery. We do recycled water for residents. We do recycled water for construction. We do pharmaceutical take-back, so we're very engaged with protecting the environment.
David?
Yeah, you know, the interesting thing is that most folks, when you talk about being on the board of directors of the sanitary district, they don't really have a clue. And you know, actually, it's okay. We've done a lot of outreach to try to, for people who are interested. We have a Citizens Academy that we've been doing now for 3 years, and so that's good, but not everybody is interested. I think the most important thing is that people understand that they have this utility, it's their utility, they are the ratepayers, and that utility is actually doing a really good job. It can do better, but it's doing a really good job right now. We've had 20 years of perfect permit compliance, and this is the national EPA permit, which is a remarkable record. Very few treatment plants in the Bay Area or even across the country can have a record like that. But the issue is there's more that can be done. We can use more innovation to keep the rates as low as possible. We can extract resources from the water. We can recycle the water. So it's the comfort level of that this is a well-run sanitary district, and your board of directors is doing a good job.
Okay, I will tell you, I know when people really pay attention, and it's when a pipe breaks, an aging pipe, which has become an issue, or when their rates go up, which rates went up, and there was a vote that recently went up, and you mentioned $650. Is that what you're saying is about the average? $630, $650? So can you speak to rising rates, why you, and what you see in terms of the future of if 630 is reasonable, or it's going to have to go up a little bit more, and what you think about the infrastructure underneath the county?
Well, we have someplace in the neighborhood of about $4 billion worth of replacement costs in improvements, which includes our collection system and our wastewater treatment plant. We've done a very good job over the last 5 years of keeping rates, that cost flat. They haven't gone up at all. What's going up are our capital improvement costs, and they're going up because our plant was built someplace in the late 70s to early 80s. It's beginning to reach the end of its useful life. We have done a 20-year look at what might need to be replaced when. We did a specific budget process related to 10 years worth of improvements, and then we look at 1 to 2 years of what actually has to be done. And we're trying to keep rates going up in some sort of fair and equitable manner so we can replace all those improvements. So the rate increases are capital improvements.
All right, and as far as rate hikes and aging infrastructure, and certainly people don't like to see big
it's a
bills.
great question. The primary plant was actually built in the 40s, and the second was upgraded to a secondary plant in the 70s. I think you want a board of directors that looks to the future, and we have just completed a very comprehensive master plan that is looking out 20 years in terms of our future needs. And we use rates to, we've been doing in the past cash-funded capital improvements. As Mike indicated, we have $4 to $5 billion in assets, and we need to upgrade those over time. So we've been raising rates, but the majority of that has been going to the capital program. The last 5 years, we've raised rates and have brought in additional revenues of $164 million. Only $21 million went to the O&M budget, the operating budget. The rest all went into the capital program. We have a very large capital program in front of us. Part of it is infrastructure driven. Part of it is regulatory compliance with new regulations coming out. And the board is committed to making sure that the district is well prepared to meet those needs.
All right, Stephen, your thoughts on the rising rates?
Well, the rates have been rising the last 5 years, but I think it's justified in many ways, like the candidates here have also explained. The operations and maintenance costs have been very flat over the last 5 years, which is a sign of efficiency at the plant. But nobody had looked at the capital needs for the future, and that hadn't been done until this 20-year plan that he's talking about was completed. So there are huge capital expenditures required in the future, and like you said, that's also where the rate increases are going. They've been going up about 10% a year the last 5 years since they identified this need. So they fall somewhere in the middle in the Bay Area. You know, $630 a month is what the Contra Costa residents pay per year on their property taxes. Other places, Berkeley, a single resident there might pay only $130 to a family of 4, $530. So it's somewhere in the range, and it's not like you can't compare apples with oranges. Every district has different capital expenditure costs, different infrastructure to work with. Some of them don't even own their laterals, the pipes that feed the system, you know, the collection systems.
So this leads me to a question of how do you define each one of you? You guys seem to have a lot of agreement on you know, where you want the health of the system to go, and so when voters are taking a look at your names and you're saying, well, why is this person different from this person, and why does this person need to be on the board? David, I'll start with you with your response to that.
So I think it's a really good question, and I would say that it's important to understand that this is these types of boards are intended to be lay boards. So any person in our service area could run for the board, and presumably, if they're competent, they could do a good job. I happen to have a background in sanitary engineering, so wastewater engineering. I have a master's degree in civil sanitary engineering and an MBA. And I bring to the board a couple perspectives. One, understanding how a board should function. So a board should be at the policy level, not get into the wicker work and micromanage staff. So I try very hard to keep the board at the policy level, but I also have the insights based on my education and experience. I worked 28 years as a wastewater engineering manager, so I have that insight as well. So I think my value on the board, keeping the board at the policy level, but having the insight to understand some of the more technical issues that are presented to the board that we have to make decisions on.
All right, Stephen, your thoughts as the newcomer? How do you define
I'm the newcomer.
yourself?
So I have an engineering background, so I understand how problem solving in basics. You know, I've been an engineer all my life since I was a kid, even before I went to school to get my degree from University of California, Berkeley. I'm a local boy from the Bay Area. I've grown up here. I enjoy everything that we have here in the environment, and I like to keep it that way. So my background is actually in business. I started as an engineer, and I started my own company in 1992. And since then, I've been running my own business. And so I come at this from a fiscal point of view. I'm looking at the money that's being collected in taxes, and I want to see that money put to good use in the district to provide this service of cleaning the water, basically.
All right. Mike?
Well, I'm a licensed professional engineer, specifically a registered civil engineer. I have a master's in civil and a master's in water resource engineering, and I know a little bit about the treatment process. I know the treatment trains, but I've never designed any of that. My master's in water resources allows me to take a more comprehensive and a more global look at the use of water. The role of the board is very much policy, but understanding treatment processes, understanding this one water concept, and how we can use it is very important as we set those policy directions.
You know, you guys have all mentioned, you know, budgeting and infrastructure and long-term planning as top priorities. Outside of that, when you're taking a look at the climate that we're heading into in terms of, you know, water supply and need, what do you think the biggest, you know, impact, and that is specific maybe to Central Contra Costa, that you can make in the coming years on the board in terms of setting policies?
Is that to me?
That's
okay.
to you, Steve.
Well, the board is setting the policies, and I think besides, you know, the fiscal responsibility, I think the plant needs to focus also on all of their employees. They need to be treated as valued employees. They are doing some of the dirtiest work that you would ever want to imagine.
Do you think they're not being treated well? No?
I think there should be some more equality in the different tiers of employees, yes. they're all in public employees, and they do bargaining for their wages. But just recently, you know, the Tier 3 employees were told that in retirement they only get 50% of their health care paid for, whereas all the other employers are getting full 100% health benefits. And these are the people at the bottom, the ones that are in the dirt, the ones that are getting covered with poop when something blows up. Okay, so I think if anybody, they probably need health insurance more in their old age than the management.
All right, Mike, we'll ask you your thoughts and maybe weigh in on how you think the employees are being treated since it was just raised.
Well, we certainly have the greatest employees in the world. I am a strong advocate for our first-class employees. Relative to the impact we can have on policy, as we rebuild our plant going forward over the next 10 years, if we can have a good eye toward how can we be more comprehensive in reusing the resources, particularly the recycled water, for the same amount of money we're going to spend, we can have bigger bang for that buck. Healthcare, our employees have great healthcare. And in the case of retirement, I mean, the other post-employment benefit, OPEB, became a big deal a couple of years ago. We have set aside first reserves and now a dedicated fund to make sure we can cover any of that OPEB liability.
So do you think there's equity issues or there are not equity issues?
There might be equity issues in that as we're moving to making sure our public pays a fair amount of money for that health care.
Okay. David, I'll let you respond to kind of both those questions. The biggest impact policy-wise you think you can make over the next 4 years, and do you believe there are also equity issues among employees?
So right now, the district has a AAA bond rating. We've done pay-as-you-go, cash funding on capital. We're going to have some bond financing in the future for some of our upgrades, so maintaining that good financial soundness. Mike mentioned we have other post-employment benefits and unfunded accrued actuarial liabilities. Those are two fancy words for that we owe the employees, our current employees and current retirees, certain benefits that we have committed to, and those have been unfunded in the past. And we have been working diligently, this board, to get those unfunded liabilities off the books. We have excellent employees, I think some of the best in the entire country. We've won numerous awards. We are very committed to continued training programs. We have a supervisor academy, a management academy, and our salaries and benefits. We've done a comprehensive survey of all of the surrounding agencies in the Bay Area, and our salary and benefits are near the top.
Okay, so you do not think there's an equity issue?
To the extent there are individual equity issues, like within the groups, we have salary classification studies that are done, those types of things that can address that. But I will say that there are tiered levels that all agencies across the Bay Area have gone to in the past decade, recognizing that benefits had gotten to the point where they were really quite large and they needed to be scaled back a bit. So you do have some tiered levels, and that's what I think Stephen was referring to.
Okay. Well, you have time for one last question, Mike, and so I want to ask you about hurdles. We talk about, you know, public education about what you guys do, about, you know, some of the challenges with budget and just get messaging out. And what do you think the biggest hurdle in terms of when you look at the goals that you want to accomplish is in front of you that say, we got to get over that one?
Well, probably the biggest hurdle from my perspective is what do we do with nutrients in our wastewater that's being discharged. Nutrients are not a pollutant. There's a debate of does it harm the bay or not. And so I think what we really need to do is we can not have to have that debate if we can get all that wastewater used back on land. And getting public acceptance and finding uses for it are probably the biggest hurdle we have in front of us.
All right. David, your thoughts on the hurdles?
Yeah, I would say that the biggest hurdles are that we do have this large infrastructure program in front of us. We also have, as Mike touched on, there are regulations that are being developed right now to address nutrients. Nutrients are nitrogen and phosphorus, and when they're necessary for life, but if you get too much of them, they cause problems like big algae blooms. And the Bay right now doesn't experience that. I'm participating in scientific studies being done at the San Francisco Estuary Institute that is looking at trying to answer from a scientific perspective, do we have a problem with nutrients being discharged into the Bay? It's a big, big question. We've done studies already. It could be a $12 billion question for wastewater treatment plants across the Bay Area. It's an important question that needs to be driven by science.
All right. And Stephen, your thoughts on the hurdles in front of you?
Well, the hurdles for me are a little bit different because I'm coming from a taxpayer's point of view. I'm looking at this as a business. Where's the money going? Where is it being used efficiently? I trust in our regulatory bodies to keep everything under control, and the emissions will be reduced. What they're talking about is really important with the nutrients, that we don't have algae blooms in the Bay. That's super important. That's going to be determined by the organizations around us. But for me, the biggest hurdle is finding out where's the money going. Where's the money that all the taxpayers are putting towards this going? And David mentioned unfunded pensions. Well, these pensions, funding is a fiscal matter. How much does it have to be funded? Economists will agree it doesn't have to be 100%. It's somewhere around 85% maybe, maximum funding required to have a reliable pension system working. Where's the money going? There's projects I've identified that I think were inefficiently instigated in the district. Probably should be outsourced to maybe even the consortium of other wastewater companies or the other districts around the Bay Area. There's various special projects that are sometimes implemented by the board that don't really follow the mission of the sanitary district. One of them being Mr. McGill's here and his use of water on the reusable, the farm that was created on district property.
Okay. I'm going to cut you off there because we're out of time on that question, and our last minute left, which gives us like 20 seconds each before we go to your final statements. I go back to the question that is near and dear to so many people's hearts. Rate hikes in just a percentage number. Tell me what you think people should expect if you're elected.
So we have done the projections already. The rates previously, I think Stephen mentioned 10%. They haven't been 10%. They've been more in the 5 to 7% range. We also do comparisons with all of the other treatment plants around the Bay Area, 27 different agencies. So we can expect a 5 to 7% in the next, say, 5 years of rate hikes.
And will you go along with that same number? Is that what you
It's been predicted by the capital expenditure plan for the future. So it's really not into your maintenance costs. This is really towards keeping the system working in the future. And it is going to be around there. It's a little bit more than the cost of living index.
And
I would say we're going to see 4 to 8%, and part of that depends on exactly what improvement has to be made at what time and whether we issue any bonds to cover financing.
But you believe those are important hikes to have?
Yes.
Okay. Well, thank you to our candidates for answering some of these important questions. Each candidate is now going to have 90 seconds to make their closing statement, and we will start with Michael Robert McGill.
Hi, I'm Mike McGill, and I'm on the ballot as Michael Robert McGill. My designation is incumbent. I'm second on the ballot. I would very much appreciate your vote. I encourage you to go to my website, michaelrmcgill.com, to see an array of description of issues and positions I have in my community involvement. I would also encourage you to go to votersedge.org. Enter your zip code if you're in our district. You have to scroll way down to find this race. And I'd urge you to look at the video I put up from May 3rd, 2016 of a presentation I did at Walnut Creek, which addresses quite comprehensively many of the issues we talked about today, plus some. And you'll see my positions. I'm very experienced as a licensed professional engineer and want to complete this work I started in '06. It has not been as easy as I thought. I thought I could say, hey, we should just use our recycled water, and everybody would jump for joy and rush in and say, do it. It's been more of a struggle, and we've got a few more years to get that done.
All right. David Williams, your closing statement?
Yes, I'm listed as a wastewater engineering manager, not the incumbent, but I have been on the board for 8 years. I think several of the accomplishments I've been able to achieve on the board is I've pushed for a strategic plan. So the district has a strategic plan and key performance indicators and targets. So what it does is it gives the board, a director, a dashboard of how is the district doing. So you can look at the quarterly reports from the strategic plan and say, is the district on the right path? We do have some challenges in front of us. We're a well-run district, award-winning district. We have excellent employees, but we have the challenges in front of us of infrastructure and these unfunded liabilities that we actually need to pay down over time. I do have a vision for the future. The vision for the future is I would like the district ultimately to be energy self-sufficient. There's other plants around the world that have been able to achieve that. I would like to see recycling so that we can use this resource to the benefit of the society in the Bay Area. And of course, above all, always maintain our permit compliance so that we are protecting the environment in accordance with the regulations that have been set.
Stephen Maris, your closing statement?
Yeah, my name is Stephen Maris. I live in Martinez, and I'm the first-time candidate for this Sanitary District Board. I identified this board as a place that needs a little bit of oversight from the public. Many of the board members have been on here a long time, the longest being 22 years. The two incumbents here have served 8 years. And I think it's time for someone to come in and take a fresh look at the district and decide how the money's being spent and make sure it's being used efficiently. I'm in total agreement that water is the most important resource we have around here, and it needs to be cleaned and processed properly and discharged into the bay without any adverse effects. I think all the employees I've met so far are very motivated in this district. They love the work they do. They have a lot of responsibility they feel towards the public. I've also worked on a lot of things in our community, public service. I'm a CERT member, which means certified for disaster training. I've worked with the police department, with the sheriff's department. I've organized our own national night out event with approximately 800 people at the Alhambra Tree Farm. So I'm well known by a lot of our community members. I think with the business skills I've developed over the years running my own business that I can take a fresh look at this district and hopefully determine where the money could be used more effectively. The employees need to really be cared for. That's one of my main goals with health insurance and the works. Yeah.
All right. That concludes our forum of candidates running for the 2 seats on Central Contra Costa Sanitation District's board. Once again, the candidates are David R. Williams, Stephen R. Maris, Michael Robert McGill. For more information on the candidates, visit the website votersedge.org, or to view this broadcast online, go to www.cocovote.us. I'm Claudine Wong from KTVU Channel 2 News. Thanks for watching, and don't forget to vote on November 6th.
Claudine, thank you.
Thank you.